Hello, Monkey with a Spanner. Now today we are talking about lower leg armour, Greaves, which, if they don't fit properly, will give you a lot of grief. That's not the reason they're called Greaves, but they will grieve you. Now I'm going to start with these. These are very, very basic. They have some form to them. They do taper where the ankle is here, and they get wider at the top, and they're uneven at the top on here. They don't have a rolled edge, it's just plain bare metal on the top here. But this is essentially, this is a shin pad. These are not really Greaves. You could argue they are. They're held on with straps going around the back. Very, very simple. But to all intents and purposes, that's a piece of guttering. That's a tube cut in half. Not brilliant, but fine, does the job. If somebody's going to hit you in the shin, these will stop you. They won't stop you, they'll stop the person who's hitting you in the shin. Let's move on a bit though. Here we have a genuine pair of Greaves. Now, first thing you might see about them straight away, they are very narrow at the ankle and then flare out around the calf, taper back in again where the knee is. They're not flat across the top, not like wellies. They have that shape that some of the expensive wellies or the riding boots have on the top, because that's the shape of the human body. But here's the point. So they're wide here, narrow, wide again for the ankle, but we turn it sideways. It's not just a straight line down the front and a straight line down the back. It's not just two bits of guttering, it's not a tube cut in half. We still have that widening and narrowing, like an hourglass. So to get a piece of metal to do this is actually quite difficult, especially if you're then going to put it onto somebody's body, because if these don't fit properly, they will give you a lot of grief. Some of the things you can have, for example, as you straighten up your leg, your kneecap gets onto the top of the Greave here, and the foot will push it up, and it has the effect of trying to scissor off your kneecap. So that's a bad fitting Greave just for one. Also, it can push down onto the top of your foot. So every time you take a step, crunch, and you feel that sensation of bone being compressed by steel, which is delightful. Kind of puts you off your fight. So if they do that, they're going to occupy your mind completely. Greaves can make or break a whole harness of armour, as indeed can the sabatons that go underneath, the foot protections. Greaves are one of the most important pieces of the armour, which is one of the reasons why they're very often overlooked. They're very difficult to make, which makes them very expensive to make, and if they don't work properly, they'll stop all of the armour working properly, because all you're thinking about is, I'm cutting my kneecaps off, my foot's getting crushed in half. You can't think about anything else. So people tend to ditch them because it's difficult, which is why we end up with these things which are just shin pads, which much more forgiving. Now, how crucial is it? Well, let's show you another pair of Greaves. I have here another pair of Greaves. Now the thing is, the person who goes into these Greaves will not fit into these Greaves. However, the person who wears these could fit into there. But they're going to be rattling around, so they don't fit, so they won't work, which means they're probably going to end up pressing on the top of your foot. If we put them sideways, you can see, again, it's the same item of armour, but they're not the same shape. They're very different in sculpting. This one is made for one person, this one is made for another person. This will probably fit anybody. So if you're a rich man, first of all, you want to look good. These are cool, but they're not cheap. But what do they comprise of? Well, first of all, on the outside, or the inside, it depends on the style, there are hinges. Now the hinges have to be in a crucial place. Like on a door, if you put the hinges in the wrong place, you put a lot of strain onto the hinges. So you can see more or less the hinges are in the same place. Slightly different styles of hinges here, but essentially the same thing. This one is held together with two straps. So a strap and a buckle holding the bottom and the top. If we open up, we'll be able to see, as we close them, there's a certain amount of springiness. So this back one wants to go over the top of the front one, but that's the wrong order. They have to be front over back. So I have to put a little bit of pressure on to get the front plate to go over the back plate. And that springiness in itself helps to hold the shape of the armour as it should be. But then we hold it in place with the straps. But we have this kind here, which has one strap at the bottom, so we would do up that strap, but it doesn't have a strap further up. It simply has this pin, which again is held by the springiness of the metal. So as we close it, it doesn't want to close. All we have to do is push down a little bit and that pin will pop through into the hole. Now the thing that's going to probably stop it popping open, partly, is your leg inside pushing against it. Secondly, this is holding it in place, but both of these pairs of greaves have a staple at the back. Now through this staple, the strap from the upper leg will go through here, holding it first of all up, giving it some support, and closing the greave together. So the strap from the upper leg is actually doing the job of the strap on this greave. So we don't need that second strap. We can rely on simply that one pin. Another little piece is, it's a straight bare edge on the top at the front, because another piece of metal goes over the top of that. So a curled or turned edge would interfere with that. But at the back, we have a turned edge because this part of your leg is open. So if there are any weapons coming in, as they slide up, this turned edge will take that blade, take away the impact, the power, and even if it doesn't stop it, it'll slow it down, take some of the energy before it gets to your body. Now these turned edges, which appear on the bottom as well, partly for comfort, but partly for the same reason, any blows coming down will be struck against that turned edge. The turned edges are always from the out inwards. They don't go this way, they always come from the out inwards. So here again, from the out, from the inside, curling out, so that the blade tucks underneath, open it up a little bit, it'll catch that blade, slow it down, so that even if you are injured, the impact is much, much reduced. One little point as well, these two have a pin on the top. So quite a pronounced pin on this one, and a much, much smaller pin on this one. These two pins go through a hole in the upper leg armour, so we're supporting the greave by putting that pin through it and also holding it in place so it's not going to twist around. This pin is much more pronounced because this armour doesn't fit as well, so it needs more pin to keep it located in its proper place. It's moving around too much. This one is more refined, so it has a much, much smaller pin. This one is so refined, it doesn't even have a pin. It's relying entirely on the skill of the armourer to have it all be in the right place at the right time. Part of the reason it doesn't move around is because it's formed to your body. It holds itself in the proper place. So, greaves. People tend to ignore them because they're difficult to make and therefore expensive to make. So, greaves. What you looking at, Pink?